To be or not to be? That is the question. What's up, guys? Okkotsu here, and here we are to do a nice quick little discussion to determine the validity of base Yuta absolutely taking his let me stop. Actually, let me not stop. Taking his massive, sturdy, it's metal, so it wouldn't throb, but his blade, and removing Kenjaku's head, whether or not it is a valid feat, and thusly we should put base Yuta through the moon and send him to the heavens with this amazing feat on Big Jaku, or whether or not the feat's invalid, and the drastic scaling implications of this are no more than a figment of our imagination. Let's see. Let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it. Editing me. Ready. 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a tilted camera. That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me, and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, we have the feet right here. We have the feet right here. Just kidding, psych, the feet's kind of right here. So let's go into it. I mean, realistically, before we get into it, let's actually have some context. So, of course, if you know, you know. But if you don't know, too late now, you do know. We are right at the end of, well, kind of at the end? Yeah, I'd say at the end of chapter 243 of Jujutsu. Yeah, the camera just keeps tilted. Stop that. Stop it. Stop it, you. Please, I'm begging. You know what? Fine. You want to be difficult? You want to be difficult? Be difficult that way. Huh? Huh? How you feel about that? Huh? Now stop tilting that darn camera. But with that being the case, and see, now I tilted it too far. Now, okay, so we're at the end of 243, and we see that Kenjaku and Takaba have wrapped up their big, decisive, multi-chapter long battle. So, there are certain things that need to be established here. Number one, Kenjaku was just in a simulation, or a reality-altering shape. Essentially, he got reality shifted. For all my Kingdom Hearts players out there, if you know what a reality shift is that actually from Kingdom Hearts? Or am I thinking of a Kingdom Hearts fanfic thing? But with that being the case, reality was shifted for Big Jaku. And ultimately, he was trapped in pretty much a pseudo-dimension with Takaba, where he was forced to play along with all of Takaba's games. He mentions that he was taking damage, and things were happening to him within this little dream world. But ultimately, just looking at Kenjaku, especially here in this panel, he's not that much worse for wear. Of course, Kenjaku does have RCT. Of course, RCT is very expensive. Of course, he's in Suguru Geto's body, and presumably he produces the same amount of cursed energy that Suguru Geto does. Thusly, while he may have more abilities, who knows how draining RCT is on him. I don't think it's too draining, because we see him spam RCT techniques way more than he does in this battle, but regardless, Kenjaku is very explicitly, right now, we're going to get into this, very specific, right now, as he says to Takaba, thank you. You cracked me up. As he says that, he's very explicitly off guard. Bro's brain, it's there, but it's not really there, in the sense that he was going through this whole extra fancy thing, was working alongside Takaba, doing all this extra stuff, ultimately to try and, escape this reality with Takaba, and he does in the end. But with that being the case, we gotta remember, he is off guard here. And then Yuta Okkotsu himself comes out the clutches. Now, admittedly, this is not the typical Vigima. We aren't arguing whether or not Yuta Okkotsu is a fraud for this. I personally don't think so. I'm going to make a whole video talk about that separately, because it's a separate discussion. And it's going to take its own little bit of elaboration and expansion in its own way. And I ain't talking about no domains. But in terms of this feat right here, Yuta Okkotsu appears behind him. And this is where it immediately gets contentious. Like I just mentioned, Kenjaku is in fact off guard. He is 100% off guard. Not here, at least in my opinion, not here, but he is off guard here. Throughout this entire encounter, he's currently coexisting with Takaba. Thusly, all of Kenny's attention is focused on Takaba. Right now, presumably, he's not looking through his curses. Right now, he may not even be able to look through his curses. Right now, all of his cursed energy senses are dulled. Right now, as it's revealed later on in this very chapter, he notices that the main reason he couldn't do something that's very important to the relevancy of this feat and may make it questionable or not questionable, Takaba did not want an interruption. He simply did not want one, and thusly, it'd be like that when it be like that, especially when it be like that. Bro had no choice but to kind of zone out. Chill. Vibe a little bit. He didn't want an interruption, and thusly all of Kenjaku's senses were nerfed. Essentially, this kind of proves that at least for this point right here, all of Kenny's senses were null. They kind of just didn't exist. To the point where he couldn't sense Yuta Okkotsu. Remember, Yuta Okkotsu is a character with more raw cursed energy than Gojo Satoru. Notably, this is base Yuta, by the way. Yuta makes that statement while in base. Not with fully manifested Rika, not with Rika spawn or anything. He simply makes a statement, hey, I got more cursed energy than Gojo. With just his base state. This fellow right here, more cursed energy than Gojo. Have the brains, we thinking about that, right? He's got more cursed energy than Gojo. So realistically, if Kenny's senses were online, he should have known this man came right here. And here's another thing about this feat in particular. When it comes to comparing it to other hypothetical feats and what this could mean for other characters, very specifically, there ain't a lick of motion on Yuta. There ain't a sound effect, there's nothing. Bro's just there. Like, he's literally... like, bro is just ready. He's so ready, bro doesn't even have a scabbard on him. He's literally just doing this. He's got the blade on deck. So he's ready. This means that Yuta likely did not run here. He may have teleported here, but this teleportation did not happen instantaneously or anything. We don't even see it. There's no sound effects and nothing. The only sound effect we get in this entire interaction is this clang here, which is literally a little bit weird because, like, I don't know. I'm not going to swing this katana against anybody's neck, but I don't think that would make a clang sound. You know, metal is metal. So there's no real, like, implications of any cursed mess going on here. It's not like Toto came out of the way and clapped and there was a boogie woogie. It's not like Ui Ui was around here swapping places. No, this is just Yuta chilling, Kenny chilling, and then they interact. And this is where it gets spicy and contentious. The question that I have for you, and the question that determines the fate of Yuta Okkotsu in the scaling sense, because admittedly, I think narratively, a big reason why I'm so indifferent to this entire interaction and actually fine with it, I made a whole video talking about why I think it's the perfect climax for Kenjaku as a character, and for, well, Kenjaku Geto as a character, Yuta Okkotsu as a character. I made a whole video talking about that if you want a more narrative analysis on why I think this isn't too bad. But with that being the case, the big thing is, do you think that Geto Jaku, or Kenjaku, got back to full strength here? Do you think he did? Because, at least in my opinion, it's very clear here that he notices Yuta. He notices Yuta right behind him. Essentially, I'm trying to think of a comparison. You know how when you get off a plane, or you get from any high altitude, it doesn't have to be a plane. Sometimes, this happens to me, if I'm just driving up a mountain, or going up a mountain, whether I'm hiking, or whether I'm driving, or anything like that, my ears will just start to, and they will fill up. And when I finally get down to lower altitude, or anything normal, I do a couple swallows, I chew on some gum, boom, my ears pop. Boom, I'm back to hearing everything like normal. I'm not suddenly going, huh, like thrice as often. So, the question with this right here, do you think that Kenny noticed Yuta? If you think he did, you now need to question for the validity of this feat, of course, because here's the feat right here. We see 1 foot in this frame, but here's the feat right here. Well, actually, we don't even see 2 feet there. We see 1 foot here, 1 foot there. So technically we do see feet. We do see feet with the feet. Swing / is Kenny aware? Is Kenny aware, and how quickly can Kenny get up his defenses? His stats, his speed. How low do you think Kenny is? In terms of like his reinforcement, in terms of how much he's defending his neck, in terms of how fast he's moving, anything like that. How quickly do you think Kenny could get all that back up to be prepared for Yuta Okkotsu? That's the question. Because this determines everything. Because here's the thing, right? The reason you may be wondering, Pencil, why are you even making this video? Right? Like, feet valid, feet not valid. If it doesn't necessarily have any narrative story implications and you think it's still not going to matter too much in the end, why are you so focused on this? Because this is base Yuta. Now, notably, I'm in the camp that base Yuta versus full power Yuta doesn't necessarily get any buffs himself. I think he gets like an extended state of a full fresh base state with like whatever cursed tool he gets from Rika and obviously fully manifested Rika, but that's just me. A lot of people believe Yuta gets much stronger when he slides on the ring and fully manifests Rika. Personally, I don't see it. I don't think there's anything to really suggest that. Once again, you can just go reread Sendai. He barely does any damage to Uro while comboing her. Well, not barely does any damage. He does beat the life out of her. That's with the whole curse tool. Well, you know, that's a separate debate. Yuta full manifested. But essentially, going with the common idea that fully manifested Rika, Yuta, give me everything, ring on Yuta is much stronger than base Yuta. That's just the common fandom consensus. Whether or not I agree with that, and whether or not there's evidence for that, I don't know. But, once again, you know, your boy's a little bit of a contrarian, especially when it comes to Yuta, despite how much I love the boy. So, with this right here, this is base. This is very clearly base. Mainly because we know when he says, give me everything, Rika, he slides the ring on. And unless I'm mistaken, he does slide the ring on his left hand. We can clearly see his left hand here, and while his ring finger is slightly obscured, I don't own a ring, but like if you were to slide a ring all the way down here, even at that angle, just based on what we see here, you would be able to see the ring, but his finger's bare. So the reason this feat matters so much is because if base Yuta really is just that much that guy, then a whole bunch of characters fall like off a cliff just based on Kenjaku being as powerful as Kenjaku is. If you think Kenjaku leaps straight to full power here, and he could do nothing but sit back and lose his domer instantaneously, if you think that's the case, then a whole bunch of characters drop off a cliff. Yuki drops off a cliff. Ryu drops off a cliff. Kashimo drops off, well, not Kashimo. Kashimo's kind of like, he's simultaneously connected to this, but not too connected to this. Essentially, base Yuta gets a massive buff. And I mean base Yuta alone, not base Yuta plus unmanifested Rika, because no unmanifested Rika doesn't show up here. Fully manifested Rika does not show up here. It's not like she's there, you know, pushing the blade any harder against Kenjaku's neck. Now, that's just base Yuta from a low stance, swings, and notably, the reason I say fall off a cliff and not just get worse is because of how this paneling turns out. Notably, look at what Kenny does here. He does not simply turn and lose his dome piece. He very specifically, and this merely comes down to a weird chapter thing. I've heard people say maybe Gege released or the editor released something that this was drawn a bit weird. But notably, look at what happens here. Let's read this positioning. Let's get extra analytical with it. Welcome to That Guy with a Pencil, where we get extra analytical with it. I want you to look at Kenny here. Kenny is standing right in front of Kenny is standing right in front of Kenny. Now, Kenny's standing right in front of Takaba. At best, going by the distance of the feet, going here, let's just say my cursor, two of my cursor is a Kenny step. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So he's about 5.5 steps away from Takaba, going by his feetsies. So I want you to look at this. He's right next to Takaba, 5 steps away. I'm not sure how quick it takes you to take 5 steps. And once again, we're assuming these 5 steps are really like step. I don't know. I have long strides. Even though I'm like 3 feet tall, I have very long strides. So that's just me for real. So with that being the case, this realistically could be like a step and a half, if we're being completely honest, if Kenny wanted to reach Takaba. But we see Yuta Okkotsu clearly appears behind Kenny. He spawns in behind him. This is pretty much impossible to argue just based on how Kenny's reaction is facing away from the camera. Well, no, it's facing directly towards the camera and Yuta's right behind him. But then we see Kenny, he goes for a full 180-degree turn. So essentially, he goes from this to... Actually, let me put this down to make sure I do not hit nothing as I hit a rotation like Neji. Hold on, 1 second. No, please! Stop fighting against me. Work with me. So hold on. He goes from this, facing the camera, to the exact opposite of facing the camera. This man is no longer looking at the camera in any way, shape, or form. Sure, he's still looking at the camera relative to our perspective, but in comparison to where he was facing towards Takaba, he clearly is no longer facing towards Takaba. But look what Yuta still does. Kenny does the full 180 grizzle turn, hits that full rotation like he actually is the descendant of the Hyuga bloodline, turns all the way around, tries to activate. Notably, he gets almost the full technique name out too. He gets curse, technique, reversal, anti-gravity. All he's missing is that engine. But as we see, Yuta swings and swings so quickly that he just speed blitzes Kenjaku. That's the big thing about it. He speed blitz horribly, annihilates Kenny right here. To the point where he's looking at nothing. He's looking at empty air. And remember, the curse technique, reversal, anti-gravity technique is anti-gravity engine. It's a AoE attack. So he's activating it as he's turning. He doesn't necessarily really need to turn, but he's activating it full force. It's an AoE 360-degree attack all around him. We see this in the Yuki and Choso fight against Kenny. But base Yuta comes in, speed blitz, knocks his down piece off. Kenny, equivalent to Suguru Geto, special grade sorcerer. Whether or not you think he's stronger than Suguru Geto or equal to Suguru Geto just based on the body, fine. Regardless, this is horrid for anybody who scales below Kenny. And fun fact, a lot of characters scale below Kenny. Essentially, this kind of, to be fair, the main characters this kind of shoots in the foot is like Yuki Sakuma. She's the main one. Because like everyone else is kind of like nebulously above this or nebulously below this. But this is awful. This is embarrassing for Kenny. And it kind of makes him drop off a cliff because now he's a base Yuta victim. And here's the thing, right? I've seen a lot of people try to, well, not necessarily try, because this is justification. We see Sukuna admit here in 246. Not just the boys, but everyone's basic curse energy reinforcement techniques have drastically improved. So, people have been using this to say, oh, well, then base Yuta just got stronger. But my thing is, right? It's hard to quantify that. Like, yeah, okay, pre-time skip Yuta is weaker than post-time skip Yuta. But unlike in something like Seven Deadly Sins, where like, oh, okay, we know X character is this powerful with a multiplier that's built into the series. The main thing I use always when I talk about Seven Deadly Sins scaling is Mel's Demon Mark versus Mel's base, and how it's a 2x amp just based on what happened with Bond, and then you go into like multiple 2x amps based on how big the mark gets, and then you see base whatever, like there's spoilers for the manga, but essentially a running theme in Seven Deadly Sins is every single time we get a new version of base Meliodas, whether it be beginning of series to post-druid to post-resurrection to post-resurrection to post-purgatory, there's always more gains. Like, he's always stronger than his previous transformed self, and you just go with that. Like, okay, I know how much stronger he is. He's over 2 times stronger than his previous self because he's performing better feats than his previous strongest transformation. We don't have that in Jujutsu Kaisen. So sure, while Sukuna saying that everyone gotten stronger here is nice, they could have gotten 1.11111 times stronger, or they could have gotten 10 times stronger. We don't know, because Sukuna's not actually a good metric. We can't judge anything off of this man, because he's literally playing around. The only person he remotely doesn't play around against is this boy right here, Choso, when he puts his 2 hands through his belly. That's about it. This is the only person that we can really argue, oh, okay, well, yeah, sure, he's not messing around against him. But even then, just based on the fact that he smiles afterwards, maybe not. So, with that being the case, sure, people have gotten stronger, but how much stronger? At least to me, that means nebulously, if this feat is to be taken at face value, well, taken at face value, Kenny's a base Yuta victim. And that means a lot of characters are a base Yuta victim. Which is crazy. Absolutely insane. Buku bonkers. Yuki Sakuma, base Yuta victim. Yay, I mean, the thing is, though, it really, now that I think about it, it truly is Yuki. Yuki kind of dominoes off this, because Kenny doesn't get many fights. But it also just drops Kenny off a cliff, because once again, with the unquantifiable nature of the time skip amp, until we get a multiplier or something, with the unquantifiable nature, a quantifier and the multiplier, or a statement talking about like, oh, X character was this strong before and may have struggled with X character, but now X character can beat X character easily. Like, if we get a statement that from like Hakari, for example, like, haha, without this 1 month of training, who knows, maybe Kashimo could still give me a run for my money, but now, shoot, looks like I needed it, because I'd be able to beat him up easy right now, Urume, but sure, still a little bit of hard work. Or we get something like Yuta saying, you know, Ryu Shigori, he used to be a struggle. He nearly pushed me to my limits. But now, I feel like I could beat him with no problem at all. Like, until we get a qualification like that, base Yuta, man, just knocks Kenny, like, straight out the park. The only characters who aren't really affected by this are characters who you already thought was weaker than base Yuta. But, like, I don't know how Kenny beat Kurushi. Because, like, Kurushi was able to at least block a blade. I don't know how Kenny was able to get half of what he did. Unless Kuroshi's actually just that insane, being able to go bar for bar with base Yuta. So, if the feat's valid, then everything kind of just goes crazy here. But, of course, you know, I've been playing the idea that the feat's valid and what implications that could have on the scaling front. But, okay, what if it isn't? Because what immediately happens here is that Kenny says this. How did this happen? Okkotsu has immense cursed energy. Why didn't I notice? Oh, I get it. I didn't want an interruption. So presumably this would be Tango saying, I didn't want an interruption. and we see the head roll. And once again, the reason I brought up the foot positioning earlier is like, look at Kenny. Somehow he was like 5 steps away from Kenjaku. Now he's multiple steps away from Kenjaku. Like, I don't know. This is just a weird thing. But like, apparently someone said in the comments that I guess Giga just drew this weird. Like, the compositing of this chapter just doesn't make sense. So maybe you take away the speed blitz. But still, you go with the idea that, oh, okay, maybe Kenny was still Giga nerfed to the end, and Yuta just took advantage of that. And you go with the narrative idea that, okay, Yuta thought this was the only way to deal with Kenjaku, by sending in Takaba to fake out, distract, damage Kenny a little bit, and then he could come in while Kenny was super off guard, and then immediately beat him. So that's the other side of it. If you think that Yuta would still have a tough fight with Kenny, based on the fact that he went with this plan instead of just running in, low-diffing Kenny, and then running back to the Suguna battlefield, then maybe you go with that. Either, and then what that does is it keeps a lot of characters where they are, and I'm not saying it just makes more sense scaling wise, but it kind of it shatters less things. It makes, like, I saw the poll when I asked y'all, hey, does this feat make Yuki now a base Yuta victim? I think like 20% of people said yes. Out of like the 2,000 people that voted on that. A lot of y'all, by saying, because here's the thing, it essentially turns what was once maybe a slightly intense matchup into a massacre. Because Kenny was styling on Yuki. Yuki landed one clean hit, kinda, sorta. And then base Yuta comes in and low diffs a full power Kenny, if that's what you presume is. But if you don't presume that, then Yuki's not like dropped off a cliff and isn't a base Yuta victim. And then anything else we see Yuta do afterwards isn't necessarily too crazy because he had to off guard Kenny. For which interpretation I would personally go with, for my sanity, I'd prefer if, for my sanity and a bit of the narrative in the sense that Yuta did decide, because Kenny literally asks, was this the plan all along? And Yuta clearly says, Takaba wouldn't execute anybody. Yeah. So, like, this leans into the idea that Yuta believes, hey, or everyone collectively thought, you know, Kenny, even after the 1 month of training, is enough of a threat that we need to we need to send Yuta after him after Takaba gets him off guard and wears him down a bit. Then you lean into the fact that full power Kenny would still be at least something of a threat to Yuta. And you go with that. And then things stay more stable. So I lean towards that, just based on, like, the entire setup of the rest of the chapter, the whole purpose of the plan, and the fact that even Kenny, after he's decapitated, is like, this is very, very weird. But if you don't go with that, then base Yuta's just him a thing. And he's, like, fodderizing the other special grades. He fodderizes Suguru Geto now, 1 shot. He fodderizes Yuki Tsukuma, 1 shot. And anyone who scales beneath them, also fodderized. Light work, no reaction. Quite literally, light work, no reaction. Man doesn't even break a sweat here. But, of course, that's once again me trying to keep things stable. If you just go with the idea, it's so simple to argue otherwise. Like, you just say, Kenny very clearly notices Yuta here. He goes to activate a technique. He fails because he's too slow. He gets blitzed, removes his head. Because realistically, with the eye-opening here, you can't entirely say this whole thing's off guard, because he notices Yuta. It may be at the last second, but if he could react to Yuta, he would have been able to react to Yuta here. But no, he gets cleanly removed, gets hit with a reversal from Kingdom Hearts 2, and is kind of just stuck out of luck. So, like, it really is a pick your poison kind of scenario. If you do want to shatter everything, go with Yuta, just did it. That's fine. I mean, once again, he's still not stronger than Gojo, but neither was Kenny. He's still not stronger than Sukuna. Okay, neither was Kenny. Like, this isn't... And in terms of, like, the top spots, all this does is knock Kenjaku down a slot or two. Well, maybe a couple slots, depending on... Like, do you think a base Rika-less Yuta is beating Ryu? Blitzing and one-tapping him. I know some people do, but... Do you think a base, technique-less, blade-wielding Yuta... Well, I guess, like, no RCT or nothing. Do you think he's beating Kuro? Man, probably. Do you think he's beating Uro? I wouldn't think so. So, like, some characters get massive boosts, which may fit into their narratives a bit more. Kashimo indirectly gets a massive boost from this, presumably, if you think, you know, Kashima's strongest in the Edo. So, like, there are scaling implications for this. So, if you want to shatter everything, go with the idea that Kenny wasn't caught off guard at all, because he reacts here, he turns around, tries to activate a technique, just gets blitzed. If you do want to keep things more consistent and not turn Yuki into, like, a bottom 15 character, bottom 15. I mean, it's in the sense that she'd be on the, like, the back end of the top 15. Not in the sense that she'd literally be bottom 15. But, like, then you do that. I don't know. It's a little bit iffy. That's why I want to have this discussion, and that's why I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave. No. Can I do that one? No, I won't do that one. I won't do the one I was thinking. I was about to make a horror joke. Leave one step ahead. Leave one step ahead in the comment section down below. The thing is, once you're watching, please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do happen to have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as little as $1 to get things like exclusive videos, early content, ad-free content, and more. You can also now become a member to the channel for as little as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks will include the live reaction to the next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, the thing is, once you're watching, once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays, Red Wolf 4765, Greyhound, and Akid's Void. And I'd like to give another thank you to our $5 patrons, Victor, Sean, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, Demix LND, and Igneal. And I'd like to give a chunky old thank you to our $7 member, Autumn's Morning Lazo. And I'd like to give another chunka thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchio, Joaquin, Idemokami, and China Doll 09. I'd like to give a hefty thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. I'd like to give another giga gargantuan thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.